lot of my time. We talked about this before. I've spent my whole life kind of building up this facade of who I am. I'm strong willed, nothing breaks me, very calm, cool, and collected.
Darnell Woolfolk exploding, then head down, just bullied his way into the end zone over Trey Lomax, and the Black Knights are back on the board.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Man Down Podcast. The Man Down Podcast was created to provide a safe space to help men embrace vulnerability and truly man up by expressing their emotions. How do we do this? We do it through the Man Down method, where we recognize our issues, essentially. We release whatever this issue is, and we rise and continue to be the men that we need to be in our communities. I'm excited to introduce our guest, Darnell Woolfolk, former Army West Point team captain of the football team, my classmate, active duty service member, and fitness coach. What's up, D?
Mitty, great to be with you, buddy.
Hey, we're doing it. Round two, take two. The first question I have, and we can have an open dialogue about this, but it's kind of like understanding mental health. So my question for you is, what does mental health mean to you, and why is it important for men to discuss it openly?
Yeah, so a lot of things in life, I revert back to sports because that's the way that I learned a lot of things and how I was raised and brought up, and productivity, achievements, all around that. And honestly, you can't perform at your best if you're not good up here. And For me personally, I think that has caused some of the problems for me because you always have to be the strong one. You always have to be on top of your game. And so that's why I think it's so important to talk about this. When we talk about your ways to attack and break those barriers through the recognize, release, and rise. The very first part of it is super important, and that is just the self awareness, being aware of your faults and taking ownership of that, which is, for high level athletes, people that are praised all the time, your ego gets in the way. And I think that's a problem that both men and women run into when it comes to mental health. And I think the best way to get around that is to recognize that it can be an issue. Some people can function at a high level with it, others can't. So that's kind of the disconnect there. So that's the step one of why it's important, because it can cause rifts in relationships, whether it's intimate or platonic or just friendships in general. And then on top of that, it's really focusing on who you are as a person. For me personally, I always identified as the athlete, the really good athlete that is going to perform on the field no matter what. So that's that first part. And then releasing is easier said than done.
Yeah.
That's where I spend a lot of my time. We talked about this before. I've spent my whole life kind of building up this facade of who I am. I'm strong willed, nothing breaks me, very calm, cool, and collected.
Cool guy.
But really, you're always fighting something. Everybody's going through something, and talking about it helps you remove that weight from your back.
Yeah.
So that's why I think talking about mental health is so important. And it's taken me a long time to get there. You said 2021. I mean, geez, I just started going religiously probably this past year. And it's been an emotional roller coaster to say the least. But but it's been so beneficial and eye opening. And I think it's really helped me change kind of my perspective. But not only that, me as a person.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
yeah.
Thank you for sharing, man. I think it's really important. And for my end, like mental health means the world to me. I mean, in 2019, right, we lost Richard Glover, right, Army football player. I followed him from Beck Junior High to Cinco Ranch High School, where I'm from, to West Point, and I think it really didn't take a toll on me until like the year afterwards, and like he passed on my like birthday. And I really, like you said, high performing athlete, high performing in all things, right? Whether it be on like the student council side or just like academics or like sports. Like I always felt like I needed to like lock in and like I couldn't show this weakness, or people were looking at Darnell or you know or me like to make the decision or like to kind of make the move. And so I think like I had a lot of ego, right? And I had a lot of ego up until probably this past year, um, where I like kind of lost everything, right? I was kind of overweight, lost like a really good relationship, and just wasn't the person that I like wanted to be. And so I think like mental health, right? Seeing it through my soldiers, seeing it through like family members, it like means like the world to me because I mean, those are it's like kind of life and essentially life and death, essentially. And I think men specifically need to talk about it more, is because I think at a higher rate, men are losing their losing their lives through mental health. We're throwing ourselves into substances or the gym, are just like very like toxic like habits, just to kind of numb this like void. And I think for me, that's what I did. I just ran to bad things that I knew weren't good for me, but it was just more of like a numbness. And so I just turned avoidant. But I wasn't able to have those real conversations, or I was avoidant to having those conversations with other men because one, I didn't want to be judged. And then two, I didn't want to like have them like look at me in like a certain way. So I do think like mental health is probably the most important thing, and I think especially for men because we are the leaders in our household. We are the leaders in our communities. We empower women, right? Our women, whether it be our mothers, our sisters, if our daughters, if it's your spouse, like, even if it's a platonic friend. Like I think um, we need, right? Men need women as much as women need men, but I think it starts with the men in empowering and really standing up for ourselves, one, right? And then two, for like the woman in our lives to kind of bridge that gap. I think it's like really important. And in this day and age, it's not happening at all. Not at all. You can see it, whether you're white, black, Asian, like you, whatever rate, like religion, it doesn't matter. Like you can see a lot of times where there's a lot of issues and when there's a lot of kind of gaps is where there's not a man like that's like leading the way they need to be. And so a woman has to like overcompensate, and then there's just like this like imbalance.
Yeah.
Essentially, from my opinion, is like what I see.
No, I definitely agree with that. I think I read a study, it was from 2024, maybe 2023, and it says people our age, specifically men, struggle with loneliness, and that leads to depression, anxiety, and ultimately suicide, which was kind of crazy to me. But I can see it. It makes sense, just based around the culture of how men are supposed to be, what men are supposed to do. It's to
Yeah.
provide, be the strong ones. So, in turn, a lot of the times it leads to isolation because we don't feel like we're able to talk about our emotions. And that's the deep stuff that we need to actually talk about so that we can be vulnerable and have other people help us. It's okay to get help. And I think that's the hardest part of it is asking for that help, whether it's a friend, a therapist, even your significant other, family members, anybody. I think men struggle with that the most. And the hard part is to decipher if it's because of ego or if it's just because of culture.
I
You
think
know,
both.
yeah,
To be honest with you, I mean, it does start with culture, but I think the culture kind of feeds the ego. I think we already have like the ego built in, especially if you
yeah,
come from very sports or like, let's military or like, coming from a successful background where you've been told you're great your whole life.
yeah,
And then you have this ego and then you're jumping into this culture of just like, oh, like dominance and this is what we are. Like, was it red pill, blue pill? Like, this is how we do. Like, come on, you know.
yeah,
So I think I agree with what you're saying.
yeah.
Cool. All right, we'll do another question. One of the questions that I like kind of have written down here is um, seeking help. So, like, what barriers do men face when seeking help for mental health issues, and how can these be overcome? Like, how can we overcome these issues?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to the last thing that I just said. It's the ego, and scared of being vulnerable. Um, the best advice that I can give is the good old Nike slogan, "Just do it." It's
Facts.
it's scary, but honestly, it is the best thing that you can do. Whether religious or not, no matter what your background is, there's always people out there that are willing to help you.
Yeah.
You just have to ask the question. It sounds very basic, but it's very, very real. And it'll go a long way if you just ask the question. Ask for help. I think the best way to break it is surrounding yourself with good people, um, whether it's friends or family that you do feel comfortable with, and take that chance. There's nothing more important than your life, and like I said, mental health is a big cornerstone of your health. It's called mental health for a reason. It's the spiritual, the physical, the mental. Those are the three things that are going to carry you. And if one of those are lacking, you're in big trouble. So it's really about taking that opportunity to be vulnerable and talk about it. And trust me, like I said, I'm 30 years old, and it
You
took me
30?
until yeah, yeah, yeah. Took
Yeah.
me until now. Literally this past year is the first time that I've done it, and it's been, like I said, like a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulder, and I can finally try to be the person that I want to be and not who everybody else wants me to be, if that makes sense.
That's so real, and I agree. Like what you're saying, the biggest, like you said, just do it. I think, right? I think I halfway did it, and I was
Yeah,
like, oh, like I'm in therapy, right? I'm getting help, but I just was kind
it
of
ain't the
just doing
same.
my little hour and just like keeping it moving. But when I actually was really intentional about it, and who hit me up, like right, good people, like my good friends that I went to school with, reached out and was like, hey man, you good? I'm like, no, I'm not good. But I think their constant support, and obviously I've probably annoyed them, but I think, right, I think the precious idea of like a life, right? Like it's life and death essentially, right?
Yeah,
And I think a good friend, no matter how much you piss them off or annoy them, if they really love you and they really care about you, right? They're gonna want you to seek that help as well. And I think the biggest barrier, like you said, is just you having the cojones, right? You manning up and being like, well, if I don't work on myself and fix these issues that I got going on, I will self sabotage. I will hurt every single thing, and I will ruin every single thing in my life. And I think I started to see that within like the past year or two as well. Every one thing after the other, and I was just like so confused. I was like, why is this happening to me? Like, oh, like, but I knew why. A lot of it is because I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't
Yeah.
loving myself the right way, right? I think one of the coolest conversations I had was with one of my best friends' dad, and he was like, it all starts with like how like you treat yourself and like your discipline within yourself when all the doors are closed behind you, right? Making up your bed, cleaning up after the dishes, folding the clothes, telling your doing what you're telling yourself you're gonna do, that you're writing down in your journal, or you wrote down in
Yeah.
your goals in the beginning of the year. That's where like the real work happens. And when you start to like neglect yourself and not respect yourself, that just gets projected onto someone else. Even if it's intentional or not, you're not loving or respecting yourself, so it's going to come out naturally, and it's going to
Yeah.
be like your natural thing. So I think, like you said, I think the biggest barrier is like that. And then, I mean, therapy's not for everyone. And what I've come to understand is I think it's important to seek counsel, like whether that be like a friend, or that be an actual therapist, a counselor, like a religious, like a leader. But I think what helped for me the most was like group therapy. It was like getting in a group with people and like of just all like walks of life, essentially like men, women, and just like putting it out in the universe. Like that's why I do a lot of like my social media stuff is like this is like my like outward journal. And it's not that's not for everyone, but everyone has their niche of like what can work for them. But
Yeah.
again in therapy, all you're doing is identifying, right? You're recognizing a lot of stuff that's going on. But the real work happens outside of like that conference room, like the day to day,
Yeah.
the other like 18 plus hours outside of talking to a therapist of hey, how are you talking to yourself? Like, are you exercising? Are you moving your body? Are you writing down goals? Are you going out on a weekend or staying up out late since 2 3 a.m. and doing things that you shouldn't aren't supposed to, right? That are
Yeah.
and are you surrounding yourself with negative people?
Yeah.
So I do agree, man. I do agree.
Yeah. I mean, kind of going off of that, I think there's two big things that we need to emphasize here. You hit on it briefly. The intention is super important. You go in to fix something. That is the important part, and that's what you need to focus on. Whether it's being intentional about who you want to be, intentional about the things that you want to do, and actually doing it. So having that intention behind everything that you do, whether your goals in life are to be the president of the United States, what are you doing intentionally to achieve that goal? Whether you want to be the best father you can be, what are you doing intentionally to do that? It's easier said than done. You have to put in the work. And then the second thing is, this saying always pops into my head every time we talk about this stuff. It's filling up your own glass before you give it to somebody else. You have to focus on you, which doesn't mean that you can't be there for other people, but you have to make yourself a priority to be able to love, prioritize, and be the best version of you for everybody else around you. And that is where I go back to asking for that help so that you can be the best father, you can be the best husband, you can be the best friend. Whatever you want to achieve, you won't be able to do it at your fullest capacity if you're not right up here, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Um, yeah, I love that. Yeah, man, I think yeah, I love that. I think that's good. I think that's I love to stop there. I think the biggest thing like holistically that I'm trying to achieve here is right again like creating that like safe space and
Yeah,
whether you're a man like woman I mean it's not, this is not just like for men but I think it is specifically for men because we need this
yeah,
as men to grow through what we go through and right this like three method thing I think Dr. Sass in like North Carolina, it's simple like 3 R's, right? You got to recognize if you it's like you said intention. If you never recognize like what you got going on, and you think that you're everything's good and all like sunshine and roses, then you are part of the problem
Yeah.
essentially. Like everyone's got an issue, and everyone has those like toxic behaviors that they have attached onto them, whether it be from past relationships or something that they had in their childhood. But if
Yeah.
you can't recognize what you got going on, then you can't get the help that you need. Your intention is wrong. Your intention lacks. So there's no releasing anything unless you recognize your issue or your problem. And then, like you said, the release can take can take years, can take months. Like it took me what 27 something years, right? To really like understand like what I got going on and really identify it and be like, hey man, maybe I was playing victim a little bit. Maybe I was part of the problem because I didn't really properly heal myself before jumping
Yeah.
into any relationship or a job that I knew I shouldn't have jumped into. And then rising like from it. Like I feel like I'm going back and forth between rising up and releasing at the same time, but I'm bringing everyone on that I want, right? I'm bringing all the people on, so
Yeah.
and I'm happy to have you here
Mm.
on this journey with me.
It's my pleasure. Like I said, I'm always here for you, and I know I can count on you too. So that's part of what we're talking about.
Yeah. Do you have any lasting words of inspiration, any lasting thoughts on this topic to kind of give to the audience or anyone that could be listening right now that may be in that rough place of like
Yeah. I
where
mean, one of the biggest things that I tell my soldiers is you're truly not alone. Um, there are people and entities out there for you that have true intentions in their hearts to help and care about you. So that's why I said don't be afraid to ask. It can just take one person to really change your life. Um, so that's one, and number two is don't give up. You'll always have something to work for. You just have to have that intention behind it to really recognize what you can be. Everybody is brought on this earth for a reason. Meet that potential. Always have faith when things get hard. Um, Look back to what you're trying to achieve. Look back at your goals. Are you meeting them? Are you putting those steps in place to meet those goals? There's always something to work for. Another great saying that I've heard, I don't know where I heard it from, but if you're not growing, you're dying, right? So always look for growth, whether it's within yourself, within relationships. Always look to grow, and you'll always have something to fight for.
Darnell. I really appreciate you, Darnell. Again, I know you got a lot of things to balance with kids and everything like that. So I really appreciate your time. This is the first of many, and I cannot wait to continue to cultivate these conversations, not only for men and like with women, so we can, make a better world around us and really heal right from the inside out. This is about healing. This is about growth. This is about like pushing like positivity. The pain will come. Like life has its own suffering. But I think it's how we get through that is each other, right? And having those tools when we don't have each other to like kind of lean on to. So,
Yep.
all right, y'all. Deuces. Appreciate you again, Darnell, and I hope you have a good one. All right.
It's my pleasure, brother.
With the balloons, I love it.